I never deny. Yeah, I told you I would never fold, even in the cold. I never lose my hope, back against the ropes. The sun's flower from the concrete is where I rose. It's just perspective, ain't no location for highs and lows. I can't believe the lie no more, the truth is in my soul. Holy Spirit, hold my pen, I'm writing with a ghost. The war's on, my hands are up, I'm fighting on 10 toes. I ain't come this far, fight this hard to make myself known. And I can't switch sides no more, the focus in the road, yeah. And I'm trying to eat, yeah. My plate garnished with goals. I keep my faith, they Yahweh, keep subscribing to.
Evening. Let's see. We get a couple people in here. 3 watching. Ooh, I'm live. How's everybody doing tonight? I thought what I'd do tonight was I was on yesterday with Mike Phillip and Americanuck Radio. So I thought I might play that. Just kind of a recap. It's short and sweet. Well, I mean, relatively, given the length of my streams, and kind of just it was a good conversation that we had, and also play Paul Palango was on this morning on the Rick Howe show, and I thought I'd play that, and I think we're beginning to get on the map a little bit more than maybe we give ourselves credit for, or maybe I don't know, maybe I do, I don't know. I'm just kind of a guy, that's all. I'm pretty modest. So again, the information for those of you who are new to the channel, I will leave the links. They are down below. Hello, Deborah. Hello, Brock. For the the Discord, many friendly, good Canadian people seeking truth and honesty on what happened down in Nova Scotia. I encourage you, links down below, as hopefully I've got the tech side of that ironed out, but of course you never know with me. And anybody who has pictures, video, information, you can contact me. Again, information is below. You can also contact Steve, LTT. Very friendly. Is much more personable probably than I am. I don't know. I get told I'm not the most personal. Don was telling me. I thought I had a good laugh about that. He's like, oh, I think somebody else should talk to her because well, Steve should talk to her because, well, you know what you are, Seamus. I'm like, yeah, thanks, man, thanks. AG, what's happening? But of course, we all have our limitations. So Steve LTT, if you haven't subscribed to his channel, excellent channel. Adrian, of course, has been working really hard in the background. His channel also linked below, some great videos, and we have great conversations all the time over the years, so he's super great, and his contact information also there. Rage in the Cage also there, doing some great work, and of course all of you right over there doing lots of super good stuff. So I want to thank you. Now what shall we start with here? Got a couple things. What do you guys want to start with? You want to start with Paul Palango? Ah, good, Brock. Excellent. Yeah, hopefully the prayers are with you and doing some good, because it's never good to hear about people being sick. Yeah, this day and age, who knows? I was going to say something, but actually, I think maybe I'll just start it off with that. Somebody apparently, I guess, over on the Rick Howe show, whatever that was dinging, I don't understand. Something dinged. I didn't win any prize though. I guess this channel has been mentioned over there a couple of times, and so somebody sent me something today. So whoever that was, I really appreciate that. Thank you, because this is a team effort, obviously. But if we have a unity kind of a place to go, but I thought I'd just play their little clip as well because it was kind of neat, and well, it was just really a compliment to all of us. Right, we're working real hard here, and so I think that's kind of a big pat on your backs. And pat, maybe pat, I don't know, maybe pat on my back, I don't know. But it's really just nice to hear that we're making progress here. People are taking notice. And even though it may not appear like it, I think YouTube doesn't always tell the truth with the numbers. The amount of stuff that we're digging up, it's quite unbelievable, actually. And I think even Paul Palango kind of makes a reference to that. He is aware of who we are. So big thanks to all of you. Now, let's, why don't we just get on with it, Seamus? Let's see. We'll start with this one.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more of your calls right after this.
Hi, Kage. Haven't seen you in a while.
10:52 here on this Tuesday morning. Back to the phones we go, and Rick's on the line. Good morning, Rick.
Hey, good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
The best. Look, kudos, Rick, for having Paul Palango on again. And also the lady who mentioned the YouTuber Little Gray Cells a couple weeks ago. You know?
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, so we took that advice and went and looked at the guy's name is Seamus, and what he's doing is what we call, I guess, it's kind of a journalism where everybody who has information kind of puts it into this one place. And his group now includes some of the victims' relatives and other people that live in Nova Scotia. He's actually in Alberta and knows someone who was related to one of the victims. So that was his connection. Now, like my wife said, the language sometimes a little peppery, and the YouTube videos, because he's not coming on and just giving a 10-minute explanation of what he thinks happened. These things can go on for 2, 3, even 4 hours. So you can check in live, or you can check in, later on and scroll through. But he has people giving him information, photos, and videos that the RCMP didn't have. They probably have them now because of the people who sent them to him.
Yeah.
And he lets people do that anonymously. So anyone, and that's who Paul Palango was talking about, I believe, this morning. So for anyone who wants to not let this particular thing, fade away into oblivion, including yourself, it's fascinating to me. Like I said, you got to be a little patient, but kudos to all the people who are sending him the information, and I think they may even have Paul Palango on at some point.
What's the website again, Steve? Rick?
Little Gray Cells,
Yeah.
as in, the cells in your brain.
Yeah, a little
Little
gray
Cells.
Little gray cell.
I'll
Check
give the
it
information to Sam as well.
out. All right, appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Check it out.
I will do.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, Rick. Bye-bye. 10:55.
So very nice compliment to all of us, right? All of you guys. So big thank you. We're definitely making those waves, right? And Paul Palango does kind of make an inference of I'll let you hear for yourself. But it was great to have thank you, Rick, for mentioning that. And some woman, I'm sorry I forgot your name, apparently did say something 2 weeks ago. He made reference to that. So and apparently my language is peppery. Maybe I need the swear jar. Think I can donate it to good charity causes. Now we were going to go to, we have the other Rick Howe show, Paul Palango on again, talking about how, of course, there's not going to really be an RCMP public inquiry. That's not, I'm not meaning this on a slight on him, that meaning we're not, none of us are surprised by that, of course, right? Because they can't charge anybody, they can't have a public inquiry, they just want to go away, right? So let's take a listen to Paul on Rick Howe this morning.
9:35 is the time right now. Well, it was just over 3 weeks ago when Nova Scotia's Justice Minister Mark Fury told reporters there would be an announcement next week, he said, on an inquiry into the mid-April shooting rampage that left 22 Nova Scotians dead. Again, that was some 3.5 weeks ago, and there's been no announcement. Author and journalist Paul Palango says he's hearing word that, well, there might not be one. And he joins me on the phone here this morning. Paul, good morning to you.
Good morning, Rick.
How are you this morning, sir?
As usual, just plowing through the day, getting ready to go.
Yes, indeed. So, what have you heard about an inquiry? And again, the minister said 3.5 weeks ago an announcement was imminent, and we're still waiting, and you're hearing things.
Yeah, I've got a tip last night from inside the RCMP, unfortunately for them, that there's going to be no inquiry, that the decision has been made that they're going to just ride it out because they're going to blame the whole thing on well, it's an obvious story that Gabriel Wortman was this crazy, psychopathic, lunatic, paranoid, afraid of COVID-19, cashed out all his money, stocked up on food, and went on a rampage like some sort of commando. They're going to stick to that story, and yeah, a lot of that's probably true, but that's not the story.
Yeah, so why do you think the reluctance is there to have a public inquiry into what happened?
Well, you in your preamble there, you talked about 3.5 weeks ago, and just around that time, I started indicating that there are problems with the story, and that I was starting to focus in on Wortman's money and his possible connections to the police. That there is some sort of strange things going on here, and we don't know whether he was a confidential informant, an agent, but there's evidence and suggestions from people who are close to the scene who observed what's going on that there's something wrong here. And then I revealed the $475,000 that he had taken out in this highly unusual procedure where he goes through CIBC Intria, an ATM company, and gets the money at a Brinks yard at 19 Ilsley in Burnside. Absolutely strange, like what went on there. And then we at McLean's, Stephen Marr and I acquired the manual for undercover operators in the RCMP, and a lot of what is in there sort of seems to apply to Wortman. We can't prove that, of course, and according to the manual, the RCMP can lie if he is, unless they go to court, and that's the key. If they go to court, they have to reveal things, and I think the impetus for all of this is that they don't want to testify about anything because there are 1,000 problems that face the RCMP in this investigation, and they don't want to reveal it, or the government doesn't want them to reveal it.
Yeah. RCMP Superintendent Darren Campbell had a lengthy interview with the CBC this week, and he suggested that Gabriel Wortman was paranoid. He says that he stockpiled the cash, food, and fuel because of his concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic. Even had his replica RCMP car for that reason. They figured that if he had to make an escape because of shutdowns because of COVID, that he'd get through whatever roadblocks in an RCMP cruiser. Superintendent Campbell also said that they have no indications that Wortman had pre-planned this mid-April attack. What do you say to all of this?
Well, first of all, the story about Wortman, as I said earlier, has been something they've been framing from the beginning, ignoring everything else that happened. Whether, afterwards, as for the pre-planning, I don't know. Who knows? We can't get answers from the RCMP. We can't get, they're not showing us evidence of what happened. They're not showing, they're telling a story. As I said, they're telling a story about this big bad monster to cover up their own inadequacies. And yeah, he was a bad guy. I don't know why he did what he did, but what I'm concerned about, what pushed him over the edge. I'm not sure it was COVID. Show me. I think there's other stuff going on here, and others think there's other stuff going on here.
Yeah.
It's not just me. There's something going on that they won't reveal, and we're losing. And what's happening here is by focusing on Wortman, we're losing sight of the real story here. It's horrible enough that he killed all of those people, but the real story is what the RCMP did before in dealing with Wortman, why he was still on the streets if he was the problem he seemed to be, what happened on April 18th and 19th, what did the RCMP do and not do. It's quite clear there were 2 massacres, and the second one, 9 people were killed because the RCMP never got ahead of him, even though they knew he was out there. And then the third story we should be looking at is why this cover-up. Why have they spent almost 10 weeks now, or 10 weeks, basically not addressing the issues? Like, what is the problem? In Russia, when something happened, at the theater in Russia many years ago, within a week, we knew everything that was going on. Who was who, what they did, where they were, blah, blah, blah. We don't know any of that stuff here. As last time I looked, we're not in Russia.
Yeah, well, a group of Nova Scotia senators have also renewed their call. They initially made a recommendation a week or so ago. They reissued that recommendation again here just this week, calling for an inquiry into the mass shooting. They are saying that Minister Blair, the public safety minister, assured them in the Senate that work is ongoing, that we're heading for an inquiry, but where's the announcement yet? And they say, basically, these 3 senators, that things can't be put off any longer. The current delay and the lack of transparency is fomenting speculation regarding the shooting and the shooter himself. The longer we wait to establish an inquiry, they say, the more assumptions will arise, further eroding public trust regarding law enforcement. From the 3 senators.
Absolutely right. That's what's going on. And I hope this continues. If they're going to take the position that we're going to ride this out and not hold a public inquiry and blame it on money or COVID or whatever, or that we know what happened, but we're not going to tell you what we did or have any examination of what we did, then I think that in this era of new media, then I would invite young journalists and podcasters and whatever to jump on this and start examining it and start looking at this story and create an audience for this story. I mean, one of the problems we have is that the national papers, the national media, with the exclusion of Maclean's and the CBC, are pretty well ignoring this story. They don't understand it. The local media, like the Chronicle Herald, is pretty well out of the picture. It's not doing anything. Who's covering this story? So I think they can get away with it because no one's covering the story. And I think the new media, this is going to be a really good opportunity for YouTube and whatever to explore this story and look at the police side of it. Don't look at the Wortman side. We know the Wortman side of it. We've seen this before. But what's gone on inside? What happened on the 18th and 19th? I mean, Rick, I don't think people understand that on the night of the 18th around midnight, the RCMP put out a be on the lookout for Gabriel Wortman in a white old police car with decals on it. He was last seen loading guns into the car, and people are dead. He's wanted for homicide. They didn't block any roads. He was out there at midnight. They knew that. They didn't chase them. Why didn't they block the roads down? Why didn't they do something about it?
Yeah.
Why didn't they contact local police?
Your suggestion, Paul, though, that he might have been a confidential informant, Superintendent Campbell calls that a fairy tale. He says, quote, recent media articles painting him as some underworld organized crime figure. Nothing has been uncovered whatsoever that would suggest that, says the superintendent.
Well, I beg to differ. I mean, the real problem we have here is that journalists are put in the position where we're trying to find out this story. You're dealing with the police. Even police outside of the RCMP will not talk about the RCMP on the record. The bad guys aren't going to talk on the record about this. You're lost in this sort of Kafkaesque world of trying to deal with confidential sources, but you have to name your sources talking about it. Whereas the RCMP is holding all the cards here. We know from their own manual that they can lie about confidential sources. That's up to them. They say this is a fairy tale. I say the evidence substantially points to the fact that it's not a fairy tale. If it's a fairy, call public inquiry, ask questions, prove me wrong, prove other journalists wrong. The real problem here is that, yes, journalists might make a mistake here and there. They might miss a nuance here or there, but nothing journalists have done or will do has resulted in anyone dying. However, the RCMP on April 19th didn't lock down the roads of Nova Scotia. 9 people died that day because they didn't lock down the roads of Nova Scotia. That's on them. That's why you need a public inquiry.
Indeed. Paul Palango, I'm sure we'll be talking again. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Rick. Anytime.
All right, well, take care. Paul Palango is a journalist and author. He's written several books about the RCMP. 9:45.
Okay, so again, very interesting, and it sounded like there was a little bit of a mention kind of our direction about some of the things. So we're making progress here, and this is really uplifting. And so I just, I can't thank you all enough for the countless hours that you guys are putting in and, helping out, trying to get at the truth, because you understand how important that is, whether you're a Nova Scotian or somebody who was affected by this, or in fact, you're just a citizen of Canada and you care and you don't like what's going on here and need it to be cleaned up. So big thanks to all of you. I thought I would share a couple of other things. I had to check in with some people. I forgot to put in the links to Mike Phillip, Americanuck, and so if those of you who heard it yesterday, feel free to obviously tune out. I will add some interesting things. Hopefully I have the time after that's done. I know I might actually run out of time, in which case I will come back and I'll do another stream, which is fine actually, because I can kind of cut it short. I'll try and watch my peppery language, because I don't want to turn off people. That's not, and I do understand some people's ears are a bit more, I've just become grizzled with the world probably over the years, and I was raised in a very good home. My mother would probably be not, well, I don't know, whatever, but it is what it is, right? But I can clean that up. So on to Americanuck. Are you guys okay with that? I think I had it queued up here. He's a really good guy. I should, so I'll drop the link to his website. Salty, yes. Salty language? I don't know. That's his website. He broadcasts, he's from here in Alberta also, but he's American. I've known him for a number of years. He's very supportive of me and very helpful, and in this investigation stuff I've done 3 shows on this, and he's always left the door open. I kind of dropped the ball on that, and I probably should have kept following up with him, but I went back the other day and did another show with him. And he's just like, anytime, the door's open, always. And I know that the Americans, funnily enough, are interested in our stuff. And he has a pretty wide viewer base, or listener base, I suppose it is now. Listener, right? You swear like a sailor. Yeah, I swear like a sailor. I do. And especially when I get really fired up, because it just bugs me. Lying and deceit and criminality and the state of where we're at bugs me. Okay, so enough of my own philosophizing. Why don't we have a listen to Americanuck? I will also drop his links in below for, he's on Monday to Fridays at 1 till 2 Central, so what is that? 12 till 1. Excuse me, 12 till 1 Alberta time, and 3 till 4 on Atlantic time. I'm thinking always now in Atlantic time. I'm even getting the accent a little bit. It's not that far off anyway, you know. Like, I'm Irish, so it's not terribly far off, but closer to Newfoundland stuff. But anyway, let's hear. Hope you guys are all doing well. But I'm glad, because Paul Palango is absolutely right. And, you know, they're never going to touch this one. They're never going to want to touch this one, because if they do touch it, as in they charge somebody, as in there's an inquiry, what that means is that there will be questions asked by defense attorneys, by other people, and they will probe into this. And anything that rocks that boat, we're going to have things start spilling out every which way from Sunday. I just received confirmation from somebody, not confirmation, but they also independently verified, basically, that people down in Nova Scotia are really being told, don't say anything. And there was this tacit thing that came out of the RCMP, I think maybe directed this direction. And I'm just like, no, that's fine. We can handle that one. Let me take it on. All right. So, where is the show? Get on with the show, you damn it. Damn it.
With brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
Americanuck Radio. News, opinion, and a little irreverence from both sides of the 49th parallel. This is Americanuck Radio with Mike Phillip.
Hey, it's Monday, everybody. Welcome back to Americanuck Radio. This is Mike Phillip. And, man, I tell you what, I had a really good weekend. My sons bought me a brand new Husqvarna chainsaw for Father's Day, and I went out to my father-in-law's farm, and I cut down some trees and bucked them up, which was just perfect way to spend a Saturday for a guy like me. I live in a city, so I don't get a lot of opportunities to do things like that. I'll tell you what, destroying nature was almost spiritual. It was wonderful. God gave me those trees, and I'm going to burn them. I got a few announcements to make before we get going. On July the 1st, Wednesday, founder of the Wexit Party, Peter Downing, is going to be coming on the show to make a special announcement. This is big. This is huge. You're not going to hear it anywhere else but Americanuck Radio. Got together with my producer, and we got a few requests already for Rock Friday. We've decided to go with ladies, okay? It's going to be for the ladies on Rock Friday. And also, if you're a new listener, every Friday, I play music instead of concentrating on news in order to keep my sanity. Because I have found that you can only stand so much news, and after a while, frankly, it drives you crazy. So Rock Friday is a tradition that's been fairly popular with our listeners, and if you go to americanuckradio.com, you can hit the donate button, throw in $10, preferably US dollars, and that will guarantee your request. And to those of you who have been doing that this whole time, you've kept us on the air. I appreciate it. Now, part of a gig with being FCC compliant and being a broadcaster on a U.S. network is that you get public service announcements, okay? And I hate PSAs, but I've got to play them in order that we can stay FCC compliant. So this is the latest government PSA that I was sent. I'm sorry, I've got to get through it. And then
This is too funny. Of course, it has to play. This PSA has to play when I'm there. I mean, oh my goodness.
Going to head over to the man they call Seamus at the YouTube channel Little Gray Cells, and he's got more updates on that stinking pile of garbage known as the shooting in Portapique, Nova Scotia. So we've got a very exciting show for you today. Let's get through the ugly business and play the FCC mandated PSA. Let's do it now.
You're young. You're finding out that life is hard. You've been protected and coddled from the ills of society, that you haven't a clue on how to cope with reality. You believe that gender is on a spectrum, but reality is showing you that only two genders exist. You're taught that your mere existence means you are special, but you find that you're just a flea in a much larger population of insignificant fleas. Your feelings of rage continue to inflate because you had no father in your life to help you develop emotional maturity. Your mother was a drunk that had you only for increased government monetary support. Your eyes widen, your insecurity growing, and your flabby arms are wiggling like government-grade gelatin. You have nothing that defines you. Is there a place for you? Yes, because you are ready to join Antifa. By joining Antifa, it isn't the feeling of being a part of something that matters, but the reward of being the piece of shit you've known deep down you are. Don't think about it too much, and we won't allow it. There's racism and shit out there. So why not feel like you're doing good by wiping out everything that's contributed to this racism and stuff? Which is anything and everything. It's society's fault that you're angry. Let's tear it all down. Besides, it's not like you'll amount to anything anyway. You've already tattooed your face, avoided hygiene that developed that permanent Antifa stench, and learned no skills that are beneficial to society. Why not blindly follow a collective that makes sure that if you suck, then everyone else sucks too? If you can't have it, then nobody else can have it. Antifa, your only reason you exist.
All right, see what I mean? I hate those things. Let's launch this show, and then we'll bring in the fantastic Seamus.
Program, please stand by.
Canada and the United States share the longest, the straightest, and possibly boringest borders.
One radio program.
This time, a nice little drink on Americanuck Radio.
I think that there needs to be some common sense injected into the political and gun control. I want to be your second.
And now, here's your host of Americanuck Radio, Mike Phillips. All right, you've heard him before. His name is Seamus. He's got the Little Gray Cells YouTube channel, and he's been doing some of the best work that I've heard on this, what I'm going to call a false flag shooting. People died, okay? Quite a few, actually. But we're not getting the story, all right? Seamus, welcome back to Americanuck Radio. Did that PSA make you want to run out and join Antifa or what? Hello, Seamus. Oh, wait a second. I just brought you back here. I had a little problem with my board. Let's start over again. Seamus, welcome to Americanuck Radio. Did that PSA make you want to join Antifa?
Oh, you know it. I'm all over it like white on rice.
You're probably kind of a ringleader in there already, hey?
Something like that. Something like that. I'm hiding behind my black mask.
Your blackface?
Yes, that's right.
Got to use that to cover the old face tattoo, right?
Yes.
That's probably what Trudeau is doing.
Father's Day, by the way. You got a Husqvarna saw, eh?
I got a case of beer and a chainsaw, and I posted that on Twitter, and one of my listeners said, that sounds like the beginning of a Stephen King novel. You could call it Father's Day.
I just picked up a Husqvarna saw, too, the 455 Rancher.
Nice. Beautiful. They're a beautiful machine. Fresh out of the box, it kept stalling. I had to up the throttle, the idle a little bit, but after that, man, I was cutting down trees like butter.
Oh, you on it, man.
Yeah. So
you're in Antifa?
Oh yeah, that's why I got the chainsaw. The trees were for practice. Yes, I'm gonna cut down totem poles with my chainsaw for Antifa. Anyhow, let's. I saw you live this morning on your YouTube channel. You were doing a pretty good stream, but I was in and out, and I had to prepare for the live broadcast today. But I'm going to let you start out now. Our listeners are big fans of your work and your brain and your lack of face tattoos. So if you could just give kind of a brief overview of what happened, the official explanation, and then get into where we are today and the new revelations that are coming out that you're in possession of that make it sound worse all the time. I'm going to hand it over to you, Seamus. Go ahead. You've got the floor.
Okay, so there was April 18th and 19th, there was an individual who went on a murderous rampage, Canada's worst mass murder in Nova Scotia in a small area called Portapique. 22 individuals were murdered, including one police officer. And the RCMP have, they've really dropped the ball all over the place on this one. And I would say have been culpable in many of those deaths. They're getting sued currently, which is really good advice. I've been kind of pushing for that since the beginning.
You've been involved with one of the families too, hey?
That's right. That's where it started for me was I received a very tragic phone call early in the morning on the 19th. And one of my friends, one of my good YouTube friends who I've known for a number of years, phoned me, and I knew at the time that she called, I was like, oh, this is very odd time for her to call, and she must be wide awake.
You know, it's funny when you get those calls at a weird time from a person that doesn't normally. You almost know that it's bad news just from the way the phone is ringing. Your gut goes off, eh?
Yes, and as soon as she started in, I knew like she was not obviously in good condition, and it was her brother, her sister-in-law, and her niece that died. So since then, many YouTubers, as in a group of 4 of us, have been working. Many great people have been joining us and sending us information. We have a Discord. I think we're up to 120 people who are really working their ass off to get the truth.
Kind of like a citizen intelligence network.
Yes.
Beautiful.
It just grew from that one phone call, and a lot of people who see they need something better than what they're getting, and the media is not giving it to them, and they're ready to step up, which is just so, it just gives me such a warm feeling inside from one phone call to where we are today, and all of these people who are awake, who are very upset, and want answers, not for somebody that they directly know, but because they're just good citizens and good human beings.
And they want the truth. Now let's go through the official explanation here on Adrian Wortman, Gabriel Wortman. What is the mainstream media telling us happened on that fateful? What was it, like a 48-hour period?
No, it was 13 hours.
Okay.
And he, the mainstream media, basically, we started with the fact that he had an RCMP cruiser, was wearing an RCMP uniform, so that's our local, our countrywide police force, national police force.
Paramilitary force.
Sorry?
Paramilitary force, I call it.
Well, yeah, it's certainly looking like that more and more every day, and they definitely are much more powerful than just radar guns. They are an intelligence service worldwide, very powerful. And so this individual, Gabriel Wortman, was dressed as a police officer driving a police car and went on this murderous rampage, killed people that he knew. It seems like there may have been killed by the RCMP
right
in Enfield, which is a small town just north of Dartmouth.
basically a gas station and a couple houses kind of a thing?
Yeah, well, it's a bit bigger than that, but yeah. And they just happened to, this was the narrative, they just happened to pull up for gas and noticed him and jumped out and shot him.
Oh, what do you know? There he is, the guy we're looking for, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's some good work, Lou.
Driving a Yukon and, looking down into a Mazda 3, you can't see the person in that car. Like, let's be reasonable.
Was he still wearing the uniform?
No, by this point, he was driving a different vehicle, which they had not made the public aware of, and he was wearing civilian clothes. So I'm not even sure quite how they knew who this person was. But they got out unannounced and shot him, according to a witness. So
that's a fine kettle of fish.
Well, I know when we last spoke, we talked about the Onslow situation, which was a fire hall where the RCMP drove up, and this was a place that they were going to be evacuating people, survivors from Portapique that night, and they opened fire on that hall. It was an overflow one, and I believe that, yes, I actually do know that there was one person from Portapique who was there. So they actually evacuated this person who had already been traumatized to this fire hall. There was RCMP people there. There was obviously the firemen there, and a car that was unmarked drove up, and two individuals got out and opened fire unannounced on the fire hall. Near misses.
Just started shooting the building out of nowhere.
That's right. Re-traumatized that citizen from Portapique again.
Yeah, that's twice in one brief period that somebody in an RCMP uniform has shot at them.
Yep, he's already survived one time, and now he has to survive the second time. And of course, all the people who, even just the neighbors and the people in the surrounding area, were utterly shocked, traumatized.
Yeah.
And the RCMP to this day has not issued an apology, has not said anything other than very, very language such as, we're working together. We've spoken with the fire chief who was hiding behind a desk that was overturned.
Unreal.
They're seeking psychological services. And that's the RCMP will say, oh, well, we're working together. We walk arm in arm. Come on.
And they always tell us, we need to take guns away from citizens because we need to leave them with the trained individuals. And the trained individuals in this case drove up and started shooting up a building without knowing who was in it, and for seemingly no reason whatsoever. I'm sure they had a reason. I'd like to see the communications behind that. But, it reminds me, we had Constable Josh Coulter on the show, and he flat out told, I'm telling you right now, Seamus, and he's not a joker. He's not a BSer, this guy. And he told me flat out that when he was on the Hamilton police force, he felt infinitesimally safer at a gun range with, and I don't want to say civilians because cops are civilians. Stop. Don't get me going on that one. But he said that at a shooting range with quote unquote trained officers, they were failing to follow the most basic gun safety rules. And he said it felt like it was only a matter of time before one of them shot each other. So that myth that, individual citizens that own firearms are dangerous, unsafe, wingnut, gun nut, right-wing radicals is a complete and utter lie that is perpetrated by the media and paid for by the Liberal Party.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, Josh Coulter, very interesting individual.
Great guy.
I had an interview with him also for about 4 hours. Very, very good show. And I completely agree with you. Mr. Gabriel Wortman, this assailant, he had guns that had been reported to the RCMP numerous times over the years, including the exact location of where they were in his house. He was threatening his own father and several several people. He was well known about weapons and these threats to the RCMP, including to the police department itself. There was a Nova Scotia intelligence bulletin issued on him, and that magically disappeared from the RCMP. Yet every other police force in Nova Scotia has it.
Right, and he was unlicensed. He did not have a possession and acquisition license. And I'll tell you what, if I or you or anybody else in this landmass that is referred to as Canada had guns, and it was reported that they were threatening cops, threatening to kill people, or I'll do you one better, even just in possession of that kind of hardware without a license, your door would be kicked out at 4 a.m, and you would be dragged out on your front lawn half naked and your family terrorized.
Yep. And they had one officer who apparently responded to him, one officer, which is interesting, responded to him numerous times, went out and visited him at his residence. He had already been convicted of an assault on a 15-year-old boy with a crowbar and another individual back in 2001. And yet the bulletin that was issued to all police services in Nova Scotia specified exactly where the weapons were. Behind the chimney, in a compartment, the address was listed, and which I won't say, but they responded to that apparently, and they just thought, well, you know what? We're not even gonna look. And like you said, if this was a normal citizen or a law-abiding gun owner, there's no way that's gonna go down well. And who runs that program but the exact same people?
Yeah.
They couldn't even answer for days if he had a gun license or not. And then it came out in a really soft, soaped way. Well, yeah, he didn't have.
Unfreaking believable. Also, let's get into some of the weird connections. He ended up killing a prison guard and his wife, and it turns out that his mother was mother to another guy that was busted in Alberta for running money and drugs for MS-13 out of the United States. And
that's correct. Yeah, second cousins. That's correct.
Second cousin, and he was also hanging around with the Hells Angels and presumably the RCMP a lot.
Yes. Now I don't know how much information here we're getting that is because the RCMP are notorious for something that it's called smurfing, and they will feed disinformation in with information so that it confuses people.
Poisoning the well.
Sorry?
Poisoning the well.
That's right, poisoning the well. Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. Like Adrian, one of the people who's working on this calls it exactly just my stupid opinion. He says poisoning the well. So, is there this connection? Absolutely. This individual did live in the neighborhood down from Mr. Wortman. Did Mr. Wortman know him? Yes. To what level? We're not exactly sure. This is, again, is part of the RCMP Code of Silence, which is notorious throughout journalists, and they're the quote. They were voted by the Journalists Association as the most secretive law enforcement agency in the country.
Unreal. Listen, we've only got a few minutes before we go into a commercial break, and I'm pretty sure you haven't gotten into the new revelations at all yet, have you?
Well, it is a ever-evolving story because people keep coming forward with new information, which is fantastic, and I celebrate these people because they are real heroes. Standing up to this police force, which is, they're bullies, is the only word to use. They simply are bullies, and they take this information that they appeal to people for, and it disappears into the nether region.
Unreal. So, well, I mean, nothing unreal about it. It actually sounds par for the course with these guys.
Yeah.
And but I'll tell you what, I have a lot of flexibility with this network. I have to play my commercial break. Let's take about 3 minutes here, and if you got to run and grab a glass of water or something, Seamus, I've got to take care of our sponsors at Mojo 50. They keep the lights on, keep the licenses paid, and the FCC happy.
Water.
And we've got to do it. So everybody stick around after this brief commercial break for more of Seamus of the Little Gray Cells YouTube channel and new revelations on this horrible incident on the people of Nova Scotia. We'll be back right after this.
Mojo 50.
Dang it, Chris. Hurry up and open that door and get over here and help me. This cooler's getting heavy.
Well, yeah, I can give you a hand, but I locked the keys in the bunker.
Dang it, Chris. We have to do off-track in an hour. How are we going to get in there now?
Relax, I got a new lock we can install later, but right now we need a battering ram.
Hey, I know. Let's use the cat cooler as a battering ram. It certainly is rugged, but I don't think it's made for taking down steel reinforced doors.
Hey, relax.
Well, I think just to answer Mark's question there, I don't.
Open the door with it. Rusty, grab the other side.
You have to look at how many people involved in this story are RCMP or related to people that are RCMP, right? You have the premier, who has met multiple people who are in his family that are RCMP. Mark Furry, the Attorney General for Nova Scotia, he's ex-RCMP. I mean, these people, the ties run deep, right? So they don't want the public inquiry, and the government doesn't want it. Nobody wants it except for you, me, probably all the people in Nova Scotia, any Canadians that have half a brain and 3/4 of an ass. They're the ones that want it.
Good. Let's get to the studio.
Get your cat cooler today at catcoolers.com. That's cat
Roasters.
Yeah, that would be a trebuchet mockery.
American Pride Roaster.
Emergency food source.
Natural disasters have a devastating impact.
Why, truer words were never spoken.
Revelations in this ever-evolving story that just gets stinkier and stinkier as it goes.
Right. So I remember when we were on before, we discussed how the cruiser, apparently they're now saying that the decals that were on this car, which they said was an exact replica, and I am of the mind that this was an official police car.
I agree.
And this is something that they're steering clear of, and I know we discussed that very, very early on. This is not a replica police car, because this individual also had multiple police uniforms.
Yes,
the
Deborah.
RCMP and the Halifax Regional Police and
Al Bagan.
a police badge.
Right.
Where did Al Bagan
So
go?
how does one get access to these types of things? A police car, police uniforms, and a police badge smells awful like police officer.
Well, and you add that to the fact that they have treated him with kid gloves and so many other aspects of obvious criminality. And it doesn't make sense. And that was the thing that stood out to me right off the bat. When I heard the story, I was like, what? It didn't make sense, but go on.
Yeah, so and so he apparently had access to the Brinks institution where they store the money, those armored vehicles, right? We'll all go there. He had access to it and withdrew $475,000 from it. You can't, as an average citizen, go in there. CIs, in fact, the new article that they came out with, that they waited, CBC, our state broadcaster, which is just a propaganda wing, essentially, of the same entity that employs the RCMP. So, you have to wonder here what's going on over there. They sat on this article for this interview, which was a lengthy interview, they called it, for approximately a week. Now, the family members, they would update family members with these form letters that they would send out to every one of them. You know, they would make it sound like it was personal. It wasn't. They were all getting the same thing. Oh, well, we think it's coming on tonight. You know, watch for it. And, of course, family members who are seeking any kind of answers, because this was sick. I mean, my friend didn't get notified, I believe, for 36 hours. Some people, it was days. And the soonest notification I have come across for a family member was 7 hours. That family actually literally went down to the detachment and camped out. However, the RCMP was fine having a parade for themselves, driving their own in down to the coroner's office. So
they love doing that.
They do, and you see, this is why it's a shield. This is very intentional that they build up a hero, to which I'm not discounting Constable Stevenson's actions at all. He's a police officer. No person obviously deserves to get murdered. But I feel actually equally bad for her family because they're using Officer Stevenson as a shield to simply say, we can't answer really questions because look at us, pity us. We've lost one of our family members.
Yeah. They're waving the bloody shirt. Yeah, the government does the same thing with the military. Every year they grandstand on dead soldiers, and the rest of the year they treat them like crap. And, you can't question anything that we do, or you're disrespecting their memory. And it's the same thing with the RCMP.
Exactly. I'd like to read for you a quote. Of course, these RCMP are very, very afraid of their own, as you said about with the interview with Coulter. I know that police officers literally, and I've seen interviews with them down in Baltimore, former police officers, where they're actually afraid of their own. And this powerful entity will throw anybody who's in its own service under the bus if it serves the greater good.
Oh, in a second. Yeah, that's nothing new. I mean, look at Frank Serpico, that famous movie.
Yes.
You see it all the time, and it's just standard issue. And that's not just the RCMP. That's across the board.
No, that's true. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'll read for you a quote that this person, of course, didn't want to identify themselves, but it's a conversation with Paul Palango, who was a former editor with the Globe and Mail, our national paper, and who has also written 3 books, I believe, on the RCMP. He had a discussion so he knows a lot of RCMP, and this was with a former high-ranking RCMP executive, and this is what they said. The RCMP is broken. It's not ready. It's a danger to the public and to its own members.
Wow. You know what? That's interesting because the Halifax Examiner ran another article. It was an editorial, but basically the writer was saying that they were having active duty RCMP reaching out to them anonymously saying, keep pursuing this story because when the public finds out what actually went on here, they're going to want heads to roll. Did you see that one?
Yes, I did.
Yep. So but they're so scared to speak out that they're having to do it anonymously, but they're telling journalists, keep pushing. This is bad.
Well, if you want to hear, I mean, how crazy this is, the person that is, one of the persons that is in charge of this is Superintendent Darren Campbell. He is the most public face. He replaced another individual, didn't have as great a media appearance or profile, very nervous, and so he replaced Superintendent Leather. And Darren Campbell has a bit of a shady past of his own. Darren Campbell, I won't get into what one side of it, but because that's personal information. But his ex-wife also was in the RCMP. Very high-profile person by the name of Galliford. Galliford was the most public face for the Picton pig farm. I'm not sure you remember that.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about it on the show. I've had Norm Traversy on several times, and also Kevin Annette. Kevin kind of blew the lid off of all of that. We had him on about 4 years ago. But Norm is actually going to be delivering evidence of that and government links to the FBI and U.S. consulate on July 1st.
Oh, fantastic. I know that we've spoke about that. I'd be interested in speaking to you later about more about that, maybe from this.
Yeah, give me a call after the show here, but we're going to be getting updates from him live in Ottawa when that happens. So, yeah, let's go on here.
Awesome. Okay, so Galliford is Darren Campbell, Superintendent Darren Campbell's ex-wife. Now, I believe her name is Catherine Galliford. Was the most public face. She was the spokeswoman. She was the one that did all the press stuff. Well, let's see how far the RCMP will go. The RCMP, she wanted to give testimony saying that the RCMP screwed up, and she was actually going to testify as a current RCMP officer at the time against the RCMP that years they neglected this story, and then were thereby negligent for the death of tens of women. Many women. Nobody even knows how many women he murdered. It was probably over 100.
Yeah.
And because of the RCMP bungling, many women died. And this is his ex-wife. Well, wouldn't you know, the RCMP's reaction to that, Ms. Galliford's actions, are that they call her mentally ill, a post-traumatic stress disorder, and an alcoholic, and move and actually do dismiss her. Plus, on top of that, she sued. She was one of the spearheads to sue the RCMP because they have a very serious sexual assault problem within its own ranks.
Yes.
We're up to at least two $200 million settlements with many women, thousands of women that have come out in terms of some of these cases. Doctors, RCMP doctors, sexually assaulting. So Galliford was one of these women. And this is his ex-wife.
Unreal. I just had a question from the chat room here. Jet in Alabama said, if you had to speculate, what's the true story here? If you ask me, these women were being killed for fun and sacrifice, and the cops knew about it, the government knew about it, and they ordered a missing and murdered Indigenous women inquiry in which they gathered up evidence, and then the Privy Council of Canada ordered it all destroyed.
Yeah. And this is because who's investigating?
Right.
Investigating the RCMP. In this particular case down in Nova Scotia, it's a unit called CERT, the Serious Incidents Response Team. The Serious Incidents Response Team claims that they are civilian and independent. Well, there's only 4 people that sit on it aside from the civilian director. The 4 people that sit on it are all police or ex-police.
Yeah, it's like 34 years.
That's right, 33 years, the ones that are retired minimum, or a current serving RCMP officer and a current serving Halifax Regional Police officer. So how independent really are we talking about there? You're not talking about any kind of independence. The RCMP really are covering up a lot of things. I suspect, sadly, and I understand that this is on the record, but I don't think it's too far of a stretch that evidence seems to indicate possibly that the RCMP killed their own officer in a friendly fire incident, which isn't really overstepping bounds because look what they did in Onslow.
Yep.
And we have pictures and video that seem to indicate that that's a possibility and have suggested that for quite some time. We're talking about a lot of things. Unannounced murders, because the police need to identify themselves. They murdered, even though this man obviously is an atrocious individual, like I say, probably a former or current serving RCMP officer, yet they assassinated him.
Yeah, they should have, under normal circumstances, they could have taken him in alive, got the facts of all this, but I think that they wanted him dead. They didn't want him testifying or anything.
That's correct. That's exactly it. They jumped out, apparently, according to a witness, they jumped out unannounced ran. One guy stood over the hood and plugged him right through the windshield. And then we have magically all kinds of RCMP vehicles turning up and the press, but yet they have kind of a show and tell of all these officers standing there with their guns leveled, and then they move around and they're getting better photo shoots, it appears. This is really, really sick stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because, you know, think about it logically. The corner gas station down the street isn't sitting there packed with media and tons of RCMP and a guy's driving up randomly. He's not going to drive up if there's tons of RCMP there.
Well, exactly.
And they said one tactical unit drove up to fill up on gas, and a member jumped out, and there was an encounter, as the RCMP said.
Right.
I think. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's dead in his car.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Dead men tell no tales. So, what else is coming out here? We've got about 15 minutes left in the show.
Well, you know, I just think if people keep pushing, I can't, first of all, thank enough all of the hard work. There's 3 fellow YouTubers who are working very, very hard with me on this one. Rage in the Cage, Steve LTT, and Just My Stupid Opinion. Just plug them in, sorry. But they are fantastic guys, really been busting their humps here. And, you know, stepping up to the plate, because there's a certain amount of risk saying certain things. And also, likewise, all of the people who are volunteering information and time, which is, like I said, over on the Discord or sending me anonymously information, it is fantastic, because we, as citizens, are the ones that are going to get to the truth. It's not going to be this public inquiry sham, which they're not even going to have, because the Attorney General of Nova Scotia, of course, is a former RCMP officer. The Premier of Nova Scotia has all kinds of RCMP in his family, and we don't want, you know, the government would never want to have besmirched opinion publicly, but the trust of the Nova Scotian people here has absolutely been violated every which way from Sunday. I mean, it would take hours, and it does. I literally will stream for hours every day going through their stuff. It's unbelievable the amount of things that are happening here.
Absolutely. Seamus, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I've got some other stuff I need to get to. We're going to let you go, but are you willing to come back as events develop?
Absolutely, and I really want to thank you so much and your listeners, Mike. I really, really do, because, you know, it helps get the word out, and I know you've been very supportive of me over the years, and I can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Seamus of the YouTube channel, Little Gray Cells, thank you so much for everything that you do. Everybody join the YouTube channel.
So, you know, getting a little bit more out there, you know, we are, and this is good to hear. And I'm really thankful to all of you, because you guys are, you know, driving this and keeping you know, the information flowing. Again, the Discord information is down below. I really strongly encourage you, even though I know, you know, we have some opinions, probably all of us on Doxcord. Still, what are you doing? You're not doing anything that's illegal. You're not doing anything that's bad. You're actually doing something that's very helpful to the rest of society and those families down in Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotian citizens. And frankly, I can't stress enough how the ripple effects of this, if this does gain momentum to a certain level, will have, because citizens will start to realize that we have a lot more power than we may give ourselves credit for. And we can take on entities like the RCMP, you know, put them back in line a little bit and let them know who's their boss. politicians might begin to figure that one out too, especially if the lawsuits start flying left, right, and center. Which is why we research, right? Because then we can feed the information to these lawyers. Very good. So thank you very, very much to everybody. I'm going to cut it short tonight for now. I do have a couple of really, some good things. I have a video that hasn't been seen yet publicly that somebody sent me. And I also have I was going to replay the video, which everybody has seen, of course, of the Shuby fire. Oh my God, they just shot a real police officer. I played it before. However, obviously, many times. And I played one other version of it once before. The version I'm going to play again later, hopefully tonight, is going to be the very crisp, clean version, as in it was from the actual person. So it's not been sent around, it hasn't degraded, so you get a lot of detail that you might not see, and I encourage you to watch that video. Let me know what you see in it that I might not have picked up on. Somebody let me know also about a interesting point, which I wanted to share with you, about the stop-off, was it DeBert, Wentworth area on the large property. I'm sure you guys all recall that, where Mr. Wortman was apparently knocking on the door and they didn't let him in, and they called 911 and the police just missed him. They had him pinned down, but they just missed him. Somebody brought up a very, very good point. I'm glad that they reached out to me. Again, please do, and she said, he said that, they had some trepidation about doing it, but they understood this kind of stuff has to come from us, and we've got to rise up to stand up. You can't ride around with that information around and hoping that's going to come out somewhere else. But it was a very good point about the fact that Mr. Wortman didn't care at all, one iota, at all down in Portapique, about kicking in other people's doors, chasing them down, burning them alive, restraining them, shooting them. I'm sorry about the graphic details, but that's just the reality, right? Why would, when he knocks on the door, they don't answer? Would he be like, okay, I'm going to leave, you're calling 911? I'm sure there were a lot of people who were probably calling 911 down in Portapique. Didn't seem to bother him there. So just very Glenholm, thank you. My mind, lots of data all the time. So thank you very much, Amy. Thank you, Beth. But it was an excellent point. And I want to thank that person for reaching out to me. They did so. And anybody, of course, I'm going to protect their anonymity. And so I again, encourage anybody, please come and join us over on the Discord. If you have any kind of information, videos, pictures, there has to be a lot out there. Come on, let's think about this here. The RCMP interviewed over 650 people so far. There's a lot of people with a lot of information, people that they knew Mr. Wortman before. I know we've contacted a couple of these people. The code of silence that we're allowing this thug organization, they're using Omerta, and we're subscribing to that and sadly becoming complicit in their illegal activities by not stepping up, right? you're not going to get the answer from the public inquiry. We've said that from the beginning, right? And that's true. You're just simply not. You won't get a public inquiry. Furry's already kind of said that. He wants to call it something else, all kinds of other things. Even if you were to have the public inquiry in the past has completely gone sideways. At least, I'm going to say the Don Dunphy case. I keep stressing that one. Anybody who's not familiar with the Don Dunphy case, please go and apprise yourself of it. There's some very interesting information about that. RCMP investigated the RNC for a murder of a man who sent a tweet to the premier and workers' compensation. So the private premier's police force, the protective force of the premier of Newfoundland, paid him a visit on Easter Sunday, and he was shot 4 times, including one to the head. And not to be graphic, but he lost a good piece of his head. It was all very close range, and suddenly weapons seemed to turn up. And the RCMP were the ones that investigated. The RNC officer and investigation, and subsequently ACERT, the Alberta Serious Incidents Response Team, was called in to investigate the RCMP's investigation. And even though the RCMP did this and said, oh, everything was fine, we can't answer any of your questions as to what ACERT found, but we did everything perfectly. If you actually read the ACERT findings, it isn't quite so. There's a lot of data that gets lost, such as the interview with the actual interview done on Constable Smythe. I mean, this is spooky stuff, right? Talking about the same type of thing with the bulletin, the intelligence bulletin down in Nova Scotia. You know how everybody else had it, but the RCMP kind of lost it, or they lose track of other reports that have been made. They don't remember emails. This is very common, very common. And then that actual videotaped footage, which of course failed, there was a failure of the video equipment. There was also no backup notes that were taken of that interview. And then there were people contacting Mr. Smythe, relaying information, and the one RNC constable, or sorry, the RCMP constable, I think it was a constable, he was saying, oh, I just was reaching out to him like a human being because I felt badly for him. And they would ask him, well, are you sure that you would do this for anybody? Oh, yes, because he's a human being. And they said, did you reach out to Don Dunphy's family? Oh, well, no, I didn't do that. Oh, okay. So you're basically saying that you reached out to him because you're a police officer. Well, yeah. And of course, they're the ones doing the investigating. So what do you think's going on there? And the CSI tech who was in that public inquiry, and she said they were asking her about the actual crime scene, and she said, I don't remember this tote box here at all. I would have had to step over that tote box. I know exactly where things were, and that tote box was not there. Suddenly just appears, right? So, we have to do the right thing. There are many people doing the right thing. I'm not meaning to call people out on the carpet, but honestly, in a way I am. Because if we just keep quiet, it only gets worse and worse and worse. And this has been going on forever and a day. And again, I can't stress enough the ripple effects that will have. Because the powerhouse that is the RCMP is the powerhouse that is your government. And if the government knows that citizens will go after them, whether that's civic politicians, federal politicians, that strikes the fear of God into even corporate, big, huge multinational conglomerates, right? If you are willing to band together and go against something that is far, quote, more powerful than you, that shows a lot. And even if you're going to lose a fight, the point is you put up the fight. That makes the person on the other end afraid. They know they only operate with their bullying, and the bullying works because you're afraid, right? And there are a lot of people down there, sadly, who have been traumatized. All of us, if we think about it, before I go too philosophical, all of us have been traumatized for our entire lives with all kinds of garbage fed at us. But if you even just break it down to something simple as, say, down in Nova Scotia, right? First, they have the traumatization of what happened and that their police force failed them. They have the traumatization of their police force issuing an Amber Alert simply so that they could bolster some kind of a public opinion for themselves, for construction site sounds, and terrifying, as Leather admitted to, terrifying the rest of Nova Scotia, and even into outside of Nova Scotia, into New Brunswick. This is how afraid people are. And that's not because they did anything wrong. That's because the RCMP did. So why not challenge the people who caused the problem so that they can clean up their backyard? Anyway, thanks very much for joining me. Thank you again for all your continued support, for listening, for bringing forward this information, whether that be pictures, video, firsthand witness testimony, pointing people in the right direction so that we can get this dealt with, because it's on us. It's on us. And sitting back on the couch, eating the potato chips days are way done. And we can fix this one, people. And we are. So thank God. And God bless you all. And have a good evening.